Hello everybody and welcome to Adobe Live. We are coming to you live from the land of the Dharawal people and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. My name is Flynn and thank you so much for joining us. We are live on YouTube and Behance. If you want to drop in and say hello, that would be great. Or if you're watching on demand, hello as well. We hope you're enjoying the live stream. Very excited to be joined for the first time this year, which is kind of crazy because we're middle of February. Artist and illustrator Bill Hope, all the way from the Blue Mountains in Sydney. How you doing, Bill?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Flynn?
I'm good, thanks. Is artist and illustrator still, does that encapsulate everything well enough?
I'd say so. I draw pictures, picture man, pencil monkey, whatever you want.
I'm not introducing you as Pencil Monkey ever, but...
Oh, okay. All right, let's change.
But yeah, you're definitely a regular on the show, but you know, some people might not be familiar with your work. You know, it is the start of a new year, so we might have some new folks checking out Adobe Live here from Asia Pacific. So maybe first and foremost, a little bit of an elevator pitch, who Bill Hope is, the sort of stuff that you do.
Sure. So I've been a commercial illustrator for about 10 years around kind of the Sydney region in Australia, if you're coming in from overseas. And I'm sort of I kind of work all over the place. I do all kinds of different illustration. More recently, I've been doing a lot of children's books and hoping to do some more kind of publishing stuff this year. But I'll show you, I've got one of my books here, which came out last year, called Land of the Lost Things. And Flynn will be familiar with this one. This is a sort of Where's Wally kind of Easter book that I do. So I do all kinds of children's books. But if we can switch to my display, Flynn, I'll show you my website. And you'll be able to see a few other things that I do. So if I click over here, I do a lot of these big kind of complex Where's Wally kind of drawings. So this is one that I did for Disney. This is another one for Disney for one of their theme parks.
Oh, wow. I hadn't seen those Disney ones before. Incredible.
Oh, really? Yeah. So this was one for the, I think it was the 50-year celebration of the Florida park.
Wow.
And then this was one promoting a recent Pixar TV show that came out called Dream Productions. And I've got another one coming out very soon. So I'm loving doing these kind of ones. Working for Disney is a really interesting challenge of sort of working within the sort of constraints of their very specific intellectual property. But it's really fun sort of working within those genres and sort of seeing what you can do with these kind of big famous properties. So I love doing that kind of stuff. I do quite a lot of kind of technical sort of detail orientated drawings. So this is one I did at the start of this year, which is kind of like an exploded phone showing how all the different bits of the phone work. This is another similar kind of drawing, but this one's showing how you build a ancient Roman battleship. So wow. I love these kind of things where you're sort of using drawing as a way of kind of explaining and looking at how the world works. And this is a big kind of detailed map drawing that I did. And we'll do something not a million ways different today. And have you been to the zoo recently, Flynn?
No, I haven't personally. Which zoo is this?
This is Taronga Zoo. So this is a job I did last year, which was really fun, which was for a new amphibian and reptile conservation centre at Taronga Zoo. This is me standing in front of a very big poster they put up, which is really exciting. And I designed a bunch of mascots for this new reptile centre at Taronga Zoo.
That's so cool.
Thank you. So all sorts of different stuff that I work on. So we're going to do something that has been suggested. We're doing a poster design competition. Well, it's not a competition. Let's say it's a competition. Sure. We're going to do some poster design today. And Flynn will tell me what I win at the end of the stream, hopefully. This is suggested by the folks at Adobe, and it's something that's going to be themed around the concept of home. So I'm going to work on a poster design roughly around the concept of home today. And sorry, I'm just taking over. I understand Flynn's done 2 streams earlier today, so.
Oh yeah, no, thank you. I'll just turn my camera off and it's like have a little bit of.
Have a little sleep, and I'll just talk. What was I going to say?
We're talking about the project. The brief.
I was talking about the project, and I was just going to say, if anybody has any questions about publishing or illustration or anything like that, or what we're doing today, chuck them in the comments, or and we'll get onto as many as we can as we go throughout the stream. We're always happy to talk sort of broader illustration stuff beyond just what we're doing today.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I can see Manny and Alessandra in chat as well. Hello, and from us, great to see you. Yes, we are live. So if you have any questions, I'll keep an eye on everything that's happening. Annika's in the chat as well on YouTube, so we're live on YouTube and Behance. But yeah, let's go. The concept is home. We've actually had a couple of creators come on. You can see kind of the past players if you want to check some of those out. Illustrators, designers, and we have some more folks coming on as well. So I'm finding it very interesting seeing how people interpret the kind of very broad, very, very broad. It's a single word brief, but it's been a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to hanging out with you, Bill.
Awesome. I had a little check-in on Dale's stream just an hour ago, and he was doing some really cool sort of kind of icons and typography and stuff like that. So I've told Flynn that I'm going to start with a completely blank slate today. So you're going to see me sort of sketching up this design from absolutely nothing. I've got a little idea in my head about what it's going to be, and I do have some photo references, and we'll just see where we get to. So when I started thinking about concept of home and a poster, I was trying to think of like phrases to do with home, so sort of home sweet home is where the heart is, that kind of thing. And then one of the words that popped into my head was homeostasis. Do you know the term homeostasis, Flynn?
No, I don't.
So I think it can mean a lot of things, but it's usually used in a medical context. And homeostasis talks about it's sort of like the regulation of the body. So the body wants to keep a consistent temperature and the blood pressure the same, and your blood sugar at the right level. It's kind of like the body doing the background work of keeping all your dials adjusted so you can get on with life. And so it's got the word in it. So let's just homeostasis.
That's a very cool word that I did not know. That's great.
There you go. And I liked this word, so I wanted to do something with that. And I was thinking about like when you have a house or a home, as you will know, Flynn, it's like a lot of maintenance and work just keeping a household moving along.
Yes,
and it's very rare the opportunities we get like, I think things are okay. It's like the job that's never finished. So like you rarely get a sense of like, there's nothing to do in the home. I'm sort of on top of it. But very rarely you get sort of a sense of that feeling. So I thought I'd do a drawing that evokes a sense of like the home's calm. It's at peace. It's at homeostasis. So that's what I'm going to work with.
I like that.
So that's kind of my concept for it. And I thought I would sort of start it by breaking up this word. So I was going to have homeo at the top, and I was going to have stasis at the bottom. So this is my very rough draft. And then I was going to have an illustration in the middle. So I was thinking of doing a kind of sort of isometric style illustration. And at my house in the mountains, I've got a deck out the back near our backyard. And there's some steps that go into the backyard from the deck. And sometimes when I've done my chores around the house and the garden is freshly mown and there's nice smell of fresh cut grass, I might go outside and sit on the steps and play a bit of frisbee with my dog Acorn. So I thought I would draw myself sitting on the steps of a house. So I'm kind of just loosely sketching this concept up. And I thought I would do kind of like a sort of really cut down, simplified version of my house in the mountains. So obviously this is not exactly what it looks like, but I'll do sort of a simplified version of it. And I think I might do a bit of a cutaway of the house as well, so we can just see a few of the things that are inside.
That's really cool. That reminded me of Britannica. Was it Encyclopedia Britannica? Some of those cutaways that you were showing, or like some of the books, like that used to get kind of back in the day. Like I think I remember this big ship, might have been the Titanic or something, that was kind of cut away. And it would have all this like really minute detail. I remember as a kid being like really blown away by those sorts of illustrations. They kind of took me back to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, have we talked about this on the stream before, Flynn, Stephen Beastie, the illustrator?
Think so not that I recall.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, so those books that you're talking about, a lot of people will be familiar with them. They were a series of cross-section books that came out in sort of the early 90s, I think, and they were really, really popular. They sold millions of these books, and they had like a there was the big ship one, there was a castle one, they had lots of transport ones that have like a helicopter or a train or things like that. They had a human body one, and they were all done, a lot of them in this kind of isometric style, but all that kind of cutaway thing. And they were done by this British illustrator called Stephen Beastie. And I loved these books as a kid, and it really got me into this idea of sort of drawing these kind of cutaways and sort of seeing how things worked through drawings. I got to do a job. I showed one of them, which was that map drawing of it's called the Shrine of Remembrance in Melbourne. It's a war memorial, and they wanted me to do a sort of cutaway job like that. I thought, oh great, this is so cool. I'm getting to do a job like the one of those books that I loved when I was a kid. So I thought, oh, I'll try and get in touch with Stephen Beastie, the illustrator. So I wrote to him, and he wrote back, and he kind of coached me through this whole job, and we sort of became friends, and we sort of emailed for years afterwards. And really an amazing artist, and very influential in this kind of space. It's very technical, these kind of drawings, but he was really the champion of that kind of thing, and did it all in watercolors as well on paper, which is still completely unbelievable to me that you could do those kind of drawings on paper. So yeah, amazing guy.
I looked up the boat one, and that's exactly the one that I was thinking of. Isn't that funny?
Cool.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? Wow. Well, there you go. That's not surprising. He coached you on sort of doing it, and it reminded me that quite a bit. So.
There you go. Yeah, cool. Connection well made. Sorry, big tangent there.
I love it.
I'm kind of just, I kind of went around my house this morning and took some photos of some particular bits that I liked. So I'm just going to try and sort of put in sort of a highlight reel, a sort of Frankenstein together version of my house. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just drawing the roof here, and I thought I'd do another little cutaway. We've got this possum that lives in our roof right now, which is slowly ruining our lives.
They're so noisy, aren't they?
They're so noisy, and we've got a very yappy dog. So the combination of noisy possum and yappy dog is a rough one.
Yeah.
So I think I'll do a little cutaway with that possum set up in our house there. So I'm just kind of loosely sketching in some of the main objects that I want to put in. And I'll show you now. I've gone around taking some photos, and I've made a little folder for myself in Photoshop.
Nice.
Of just
you wanted to show
photos.
off your freshly mowed green lawn.
Oh yeah, and look at the relative neatness of this hedge. Oh boy,
great.
That's a big job.
And you've got the hills hoist in the background. That's a very classic. Australian classic thing.
Yeah. So these are the stairs that I want to work on. I might actually just move these around and put them where I can work with them. So I've got my stairs. I've got a picture of little acorn. So we'll move him into a place where I can see him. I'm currently doing a little bit of drawing on this mantelpiece. I'm a sucker for a mantelpiece, so I wanted to include that in here as well. And there was just an armchair I was going to include as well. So I've just taken a few little photos of little elements of this house.
Nice.
And we'll be able to work with those. But I will just drop that away for now. And I'm doing this in a kind of isometric drawing style. So we've talked about this plenty of times on the stream. I'm sure people are familiar with it. But basically, isometric drawing is where you're drawing to a grid like this. And a grid has these lines, which I think are 30 degrees. I don't actually know what the official angle of lines on isometric, but it's a way of basically drawing a three-dimensional object but with no perspective. So you just follow this grid, and you can sort of build out a three-dimensional object just sort of working along the lines of that grid. It's pretty self-explanatory. So I've just got a sort of a grid that I'm going to lay out over my drawing, and that'll give me a really good reference for how my sketch is coming together.
Cool.
Okay, I'm liking how this is looking generally, but I think it would be nice to include a bit of the hedge in there as well. So I'm just going to move around my sketch a bit, and we'll have a bit of hedge coming down here as well.
In the danger of turning this into "How do you look after your home" podcast, was that hedge there when you there when you moved in? Have you grown it? Is it? Tell me about your hedge.
It was there when we moved in, and the previous homeowner said to me, "You're going to have to buy some hedging equipment." And I thought, "Yeah, I got it. I got some clippers. I can take care of it." But this is a hedge. I can't remember the type of tree that is, but it's apparently outlawed in some places because it grows so aggressively. Right. This tree, like, it just takes over properties, and it's a substantial piece of work. And I could talk to you about hedging equipment. I've got a lot of hedging equipment now, as I'll say, way more than I ever wanted to possess. But that's where we are.
Yeah, yeah. I had a hedge at my old place. It was a little bit like that, but we were only renting it for a year, so it wasn't up to us to maintain it. Thankfully,
right.
And it taught me that, yeah, growing a really big long hedge could be a hindrance if done incorrectly. So,
yes, yeah. No, it's a lot of work, and you have to spend a lot of time on top of a very, very big ladder. Okay, but I'm trying to. Thanks. I'm sort of doing an abstract version of this, so I think I'll kind of break up the hedge and just put it in little bits, little versions of the hedge around the house like this. So, I don't know, this is one of those styles of drawing that I like, where you're sort of taking a realistic style of drawing, and then just kind of messing with it and moving bits around. So you can kind of tell what you're looking at, but it's got a slightly sort of uncanny edge to it. Okay, that's sort of my first rough draft of the concept, and I'm happy with how that's going. But I'd like to do a bit of typography on this one as well. So I'm going to open up a new layer, and I'm going to start trying to sort of bash out some rough typography, and I'll give you my sort of very basic philosophy for putting together a sort of consistent looking type. I've never studied type, and I don't know a great deal about it. So for any type designers out there, maybe close your eyes for the next 10 minutes. This is going to be ugly. But the thing that I find helpful is just copying and pasting to use repetition to get a consistent look. So I'm just going to try and get the thickness of all my letters the same. So I've started with the H, I'm moving on to the O, and you can see I'm just measuring the width of the H against the O there. And then I'm going to put in the lines for the H there, and then I'm just going to drag that across loosely, and I'm going to use that as a guide throughout the rest of the text. So I've done half my O, and I'm going to flip that now to make it nice and consistent. Again, I'm going to move part of the H across, and I'm going to do that again because I'm making an M now. And because I've got these guidelines along there, I'm going to try and match up the parts of my M with those lines. So you can see I'm sort of Frankensteining other bits of the text,
yeah,
and moving them around so it stays nice and consistent as I put it together. So I'm just going to start piecing that together, and I'm not worrying about erasing any of the bits in between. I'll be able to come back and do that later. So again, I'm going to grab the H, move it across, so we're moving on to an E now. Again, I'm going to take that section, I'm going to copy and paste it, rotate it. I'm going to move it up. And you can see I can really quickly start piecing together bits of this type. So I've got, luckily I've got another repeating letter coming up here. So again, I'm just going to drag it across. So we've got home EO there. Okay, that doesn't.
I like how it is because it's like constructed like blueprints or something already at the moment.
Oh yeah,
which is quite cool.
Cheers. Well, I like how that looks, but it's going to take up an awful lot of room if I expand it across. Actually, it's not that bad. I kind of like it being massive like that. So we've got the top bit there. Now let's drag one section down and see if we can do the stasis. I know this one's going to be trickier. But we'll see how we go. It's mainly going to be trickier because we've got an S in there, and S's are really hard. Okay, so let's make the top of our T.
And it was interesting as well for chat or people watching on demand as we're going through. It's kind of like Illustrator kind of creating the basis of a bit of type that's going in this illustration. And it's funny because Dale, in the previous stream as well, if you want to check that out, showed 2 other techniques for doing this. So you're getting 3 techniques in 2 live streams, which is really cool.
Oh, wow. There you go. So, okay, I got to confront my fears. I got to do this S now. Okay. I'm just going to have to, I don't have a better approach, so I'm going to have to just eyeball it for this one. But you can see I'm trying to match the width of my previous text, and I'll drag out a couple lines to try and get it nice and consistent. I've never found a way to kind of automate making an S. It feels like you just really need to.
It's a pretty great S.
Do it by eye. Good. I'll do. It's a little wacky for this type, but in the interest of time, let's go with that. Okay, so again, I'm just gonna drag that across.
That's a good question from Manny. Thanks for the question. Are the guidelines a preset in Adobe? So I'm going to assume that you mean the isometric grid guide, and I think I don't know if there is one that's native in Photoshop. Where did you get your grid from?
I don't believe there is. I can't even recall if I made my own or if I got it off the internet somewhere. No, there isn't. But they are very, very easy to make. You can. Well, actually, I can very speedily show you, I think. So if you draw a straight line down, and then if you go to rotate it and hold Shift, it snaps to I think 30-degree increments. Was that right? Oh, I can
15?
tell me. Yep. Well, 60 degrees from vertical. Yep. So it snaps there. And what you can do is you can just do that and duplicate your line lots of times, and then just flip that, and you've got an isometric grid. So there's a very, very quick way you can do it in Photoshop.
Nice. And if you felt more comfortable, you could do it in Illustrator with like half a line and step them so they're absolutely perfect, and then flip it all, and then you could even bring that into Photoshop, make it a guide.
There you go. Okie dokie. Oh, luckily this has got 3 S's in it. I'm glad I put all that hard work in. And now I can just drag across my S. And then again, let's get it to fill the space nicely. Okay, so it's a lot of text in this one. But you know what I'm going to do? I think I can work with that. I'll come back to it later. I might actually make the text like in like a really soft gray once I get around to finishing it. And then I could even have it in the background and let the illustration be in the front there.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, that's all looking good. So we've got text. Let me just find my layers. Okay, we've got a text on one layer. I can get rid of that. And let's start doing the fun bit. So we will work on this illustration. How are we going for time? 124, and we're going till 145, aren't we, Flynn?
Yeah, or even 150 if we need it. But yeah, around 145, 150. That's good.
Cool. All right, so I might start with the main characters. I've been doing some very sort of cute, blocky kind of characters recently, so I might do something in a similar style. You can see I've got my loose original sketch there, but I'm going to go kind of off track pretty quickly with that one. So I'm just kind of doing a blobby version of the bits of the body. So this is me sitting on the step. And often I will have a cup of tea with me. It's a nice cozy picture, so we better have a cup of tea in there. One figure drawing tip I would often give people is to, if you're drawing the shoulder and then you're drawing a hand doing something, draw the shoulder and then draw the hand and then connect them rather than going shoulder, elbow, hand, because where you draw the elbow is going to dictate where the hand can be, but you don't think about where your elbow is ever. You just think about where your hand is, and your elbow figures it out. So I put the hand in first
great.
and then just join up the dots. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I love that.
So I'll put some cute little face in. I don't have to worry about it looking much like me because it's kind of just a cute blobby character. And we'll chuck in the arms there. Okay, another tip that I'll show you is when you're drawing someone sitting on, like if they're climbing up a ladder or sitting on steps, sitting on a chair, basically anything where the environment is going to dictate how the body can be positioned. I've got to draw the figure here first, but a better way of doing it would have been to draw the steps first, and then you're adjusting the body to fit onto the steps rather than the other way around. So what I'm going to do now is just start working on the steps on a separate layer. And because we're working isometrically, we can kind of do a lot of cheating to speed up this process and make it accurate as well. So you can see I've just drawn part of one step. I'm going to duplicate it a bunch of times. Now I'm going to right click on it and use the perspective warp. And then I'm just going to bring it in line to my pre-existing isometric grid there.
Yeah, cool.
And then I can just reposition it to make it sure it's nicely lined up with my grid. And then I've got the side of the step there. And the name of the game with isometric drawing is to try and just not have to do anything twice. So instead of redrawing the side of, so when I get to drawing these steps, I'm going to draw one line that matches up with my grid. And I'm going to duplicate that to make one more step. And then I'm just going to duplicate that again, and duplicate that again, and duplicate that again. And you can see you can start drawing really quickly doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because there's kind of no wastage in your process. You're just kind of bashing it out. This isn't a good way to work when you're sketching. I think free sketching or coming up with an idea, it's much better to sort of have kind of wasted time or scribbling involved in your process. But once you kind of got the idea down, you've done the creative bit, you're just kind of onto the rendering. It's fine to try and speed it up as much as possible. So now I'm going to get my figure and I'm just going to make sure his butt and his feet are nicely aligned with the steps. So he's sitting nicely on there. And then I can go ahead and delete the steps underneath my figure there. And we've got someone nicely sitting on the steps.
Nice. How did you select just everything on there, if you don't mind, that quick little step that you did there? No pun intended.
I'll just go back. So basically I've just selected everything outside of the figure. So you can see just everything in the frame outside of that sketch figure. And then I've pressed Shift-Command-I, and that inverts your selection. Right. So now it's just selected things within the person. And then I go to my step layer and just hit delete. Just to delete the things.
I would have assumed that wasn't like completed lines, but when you're sketching something out, you're intending to make sure that the outline of your sketch is completed for that kind of purpose.
Yeah, I did miss some bits, but often I will do it that way.
Okay.
I am rushing a little bit here, but yeah. All right, now let's do a nice cute dog. So we're going to have, luckily I've drawn Acorn a million times before. So let's get him. I think the trick with a lot of cute dogs like this is just to sort of reduce the limbs and the body down to the smallest thing possible. But trying to keep the movement in there. But you just make him really, really stubby and he'll come out very cute. So there's a cute little acorn chasing after his frisbee. Let's pop the frisbee in there. And we'll position him down here. Okay, let's get back to working on our house. Again, I'll show you sort of how I work through kind of like, one of the easy things about drawing isometrically is instead of having to draw everything in 3 dimensions, you can kind of draw a lot of it in 2 dimensions and then adjust the whole thing to match up with the sketch that you've done. So I'm kind of just drawing in 1 dimensions the front of the deck. Then I will scale it to match. And now I can warp this whole thing to match the front of the deck that I've drawn already.
Yeah, wow.
And you can really quickly sort of bash out some of this stuff. And then I'm going to take that. Oh. I'm going to take that. I can flip it. I can use that on this side. I can use it on that side as well.
Wow, and as you said before, you're just suddenly building like so very quickly.
Yeah. And yeah, it definitely suits my slightly impatient nature with these kind of things. And I've said it many times before, but it's sort of, if anybody remembers that game, there was a game called Age of Empires where you had like a map builder where you were building towns, and it does start to feel a bit like that, a bit like a video game where you're just kind of bashing things out. So I'm just doing the railing on the top of my deck. And again, I'm just going to erase the bits I don't need underneath that character. I won't bother with any of the selection stuff. But I will use the line tool just to fill in some of those gaps. Oh, something's gone a bit wrong there, that everything isn't quite lining up, but that's okay. I just need to move some sections around.
I have a question from Annika. Thanks for the question, by the way, Annika. How do you ensure non-Minecraft-like humans in an isometric illustration, like the sizing?
How do you ensure non-Minecraft? Do you mean boxy or small? Non-Minecraft.
Yeah, I would assume you meant boxing, but you meant the you added the sizing at the end. So do you want to clarify that? But yeah, maybe it's the boxing type, boxy type.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing, I mean, one of the great things about isometric is that it's so regimented and so clear that sort of natural figures stand out really nicely against it. Because isometric is kind of, it's a very unnatural way of viewing, like nothing actually looks isometric in real life. So you can basically draw people as if you're seeing them from the side. You don't have to worry about people, like you're not seeing them really from the top down at all, even though you are seeing into other things, if that makes any sense. It's a very abstract way of drawing things. So it is quite easy that you can just kind of draw naturally people as you would see them from the side and then kind of match them to the environment. With this, I'm really playing with scale. So I'm making the person way bigger than they would normally be in contrast to the rest of the house. So I am kind of just ignoring reality for my own interests a little bit there.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to start working on the front door here, and I'll do a really similar thing where I'm going to draw a front-on version of the front door, and then I'll start adjusting that to match the perspective. So just drawing the front of those kind of eaves there. And the other thing that I'll do when I'm drawing in this style is I'll always just draw one side of something and then flip it. It's a much easier way of doing things, and you get everything nice and even.
You don't have to tell me if this is a trade secret, but is that technique something you got from your conversations with Stephen that was mentioned before, the idea of doing something 2D and then flipping it, or is this something that you've kind of come up with?
It's something I've kind of come up with, and the crazy thing about Stephen was that he was doing all of this on paper. So he was not flipping or warping anything. None of it matters. He just had to do it.
Did he use a ruler?
He must have. I think he had like a big drafting board that he would work to. But those detailed ships, I mean, it's one watercolor drawing, so one mistake and you're stuck. Like the hours that it would take for those things. And the other thing, if I can just, I'm a huge nerd for this kind of thing. The other extraordinary thing about those is just doing it without Google image search. So if you want to find out how a steamship works, you can't look it up. You have to go to a steamship and do a bunch of sketches and take photos. So he was telling me when he'd do these things, he would have in the publishing budget, there would be a travel budget as well for him to go around and spend ages looking at all this stuff, which is kind of extraordinary.
Oh, wow. That's great. I love that. I need a travel budget because I need to go sketch out the actual real thing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Amazing. Okay, so I'm going to piece it in this side of the house. And there is a bit of a front door there, but it's just going to be hidden away. So I'll just put a bit of a handle there. And again, we're going to do exactly the same trick as we did before with the steps, of just taking them and warping them to where I know they need to be. You much of a DIY guy, Flynn, at your place?
I wasn't until recently.
Oh, really?
Trying to figure everything out from scratch.
Yeah. What are you working on right now?
The next thing I have what used to be, used to have a shed on it, according to my neighbors, but there was nothing on it when we moved in. But I'm 99% sure that it used to be the old latrine. So it used to be the old outhouse.
Lovely.
So it's kind of buckled over time, but then there's a big chunk of it that's kind of raised and also deeper, and it probably didn't go anywhere. So I'm sure it hasn't been used for about 80 years or something like that. But that's how old the house is. So that still exists. So next big job is to rip up all of those tiles and fill it up with gravel and dirt and returf a whole section that's in the middle of my yard. And it's just such a big job. I thought it was the first thing I was going to do, and I've been here for a year and a half and I haven't touched it.
Yeah, there was a shelf that needed painting in my bathroom when we moved in, and it was the first job that I was like, yeah, okay, I'll knock that out next weekend, kind of thing. And I literally did it last week after 4.5 years. So
things pop up, don't they?
Yeah. So while I've been chatting, I've just been doing a bit of relentless duplication on that roof.
Yeah, so cool.
And again, it's another one of the sort of isometric things, but because you're viewing everything from one angle and there not being any perspective, you can really lean into duplicating things. So you can do something like putting those roof tiles on. And for the edge, I'm just going to sort of make a sort of sideways piece here, and then I'll do the same trick as I did before of reversing a selection, and I'll just delete those tiles there.
Nice.
And I'll take that section and I'll flip that over as well to add the other side of the roof there. And I might just make that a straight vertical cutaway there. And let's start putting in our vicious little possum.
Have you named the possum yet? Or you don't want to because you might have to take drastic measures?
Well, yeah, I mean, you really can't take drastic measures. I don't know if anybody knows people from in New Zealand. Possums are a non-protected species and are a huge pest there. So drastic measures are taken with possums in New Zealand, but you need to be a lot kinder in Australia. And also, this possum was here before we got here, so fair enough.
All right, you're the tenants.
Yeah, we're the tenants, basically. So there is a possum man in the Blue Mountains that you can call up to come and extract your possum. Well, he doesn't actually extract the possum. He gently patches up the holes in your roof so the possum can't get back into your roof enclosure, if you have one. We have employed the services of the possum man, but the possum got back in. It's a tenacious little guy.
Oh, wow. You need 2 possum men.
Well, there are actually 2 possum men in the Blue Mountains. One calls himself the original possum man, and the other one is obviously the
that is the most
usurper
Blue Mountains thing I've ever heard. That's such a Wisteria Lane like level of pettiness, like the original. Yeah. That's amazing.
And you can kind of see it's almost been like stamped on top of his ads once the second possum man came along. He's like, no, I was here first.
That's incredible. I love to hear that. That's so good.
Yeah. Okay, so it's time to get there. Our house is coming together. What I might do is I'm going to make a little bit of a sort of hedge element, And again, I will duplicate to my heart's desire. So let's make a little fuzzy hedge. And I'm sort of doing a sort of fuzzy hedge kind of texture, but I'm trying to match up the grid as I go. So let's do that. And then I'll kind of grey out one section to give a little bit of sense of 3 dimensions, and then I'll just populate a few of those around where I want them.
That's so cool.
Kind of fill in that design. Oh, no mistake. Just filling those with white so they can stay on a different level above.
Right. So they stay above everything else below it. So it's not clear.
Yeah.
It was clear before. Okay.
Yeah, that one's
clear, transparent.
Out.
That's really cool. Yeah, the duplication I think has been like a really big takeaway about how you mentioned kind of that working smart kind of perspective of, okay, think about what you're creating. Can you duplicate it rather than remaking everything from scratch?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can go too far with it and kind of get a bit lost in the process when you're sort of like sometimes I think I go a bit crazy with it where I'm just kind of focused more on efficiency than the actual drawing itself. Right. So you kind of do need to take a bit of a step back, but it is great how much you can speed up things. I'm just going to just making a selection of this text so I can show you kind of what I was thinking for that. I can tap Q to gives you a sort of a what would you call Q? What's it called? It's a kind of gives you like a sample of what your selection is. So if it just shows up like that. So again, I'm just going to invert my sample, and on a new layer, I'm going to fill it with that gray. I might make that really pale. And that's kind of what I'm thinking, where I'll be able to have the illustration kind of sit on top of that that background design a little bit once it's done. Yeah. Okay, I'll keep filling in the inside of the house a bit. I know we're running out of time, but hopefully we'll have a chance to come back on another stream and fill in the details and get a bit of color going on with this design.
Oh, please. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'd love to have you back on. As we are wrapping up, ladies and gentlemen, we do have one more question. Jellyfish.
Hey, Jellyfish.
How do you so effortlessly match the 2D drawings to the isometric grid? It seems tricky to me.
Match the 2D drawings to the isometric grid. Oh, right. It's so I mean, I'm drawing say a square, and then I'm hitting V to bring up my transform controls. Right clicking and then clicking perspective, and then I'm just dragging these toggles and just moving them so they line up. Like, I'm not getting it completely exact. There are ways to make it really perfect, but I'm just sort of eyeballing it as much as possible. And it's one of those things where if you kind of get it 80% right, once you pan back and look at the whole drawing, it looks correct. It doesn't need to be perfect. Yeah.
Very cool.
Cool. No worries.
Well, yeah, let's hold it there. That's incredible. I mean, as always, like, it's just so incredible how fast you work. Really, really cool. I just can't wait to see this piece continue on. We'll do a part 2, I think, a couple of weeks or something like that. Will be really great, depending on your schedule. But this is so cool. Thank you so much, Bill.
Awesome. No worries. It's been a lot of fun. So thank you for sticking with us over the stream, guys. And we'll see you next time.
See you all next time. Thank you, guys. That's us for this week for Adobe Live. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for all the chats, Annika and Manny and Alessandra, Johanna as well, Jellyfish, of course. Lovely to have you all with us, and we'll see you next time on Adobe Live. Thanks again, Bill.
See ya.